Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to part 2 of Google OAuth 2.0. In the previous video, we started doing the Google OAuth 2.0. I showed you guys how to create a project in the Google API console and walked through each piece of that, and then showed you guys how to write the code to connect. In this video, we're going to improve on that code a little bit, and then I'm going to also show you guys how to send an email. We're going to write a function that will send an email through the Google Connect. So let's get started. So here on the ideapro.io page where we created a plugin in the first video, and we wrote the code to connect to Gmail. We have connect to Gmail here, and then on our code, we have the connect to Gmail here and the client which pulls in the information to pull the code. Now, I showed you guys how to list the get a list of the email messages, and before this video I revoked the token that connected us to Gmail so that we could walk through that process again. Now, if we turn this on to get a list of Gmail using the client, it's going to give us a fatal error. And it's going to give us that fatal error because we're no longer connected, but we're still trying to pull the emails. So we need to fix this so that it says, don't do a list if we're not connected. And it's pretty simple how we're going to do that. So first we're going to turn this off so we don't get that fatal error. Come back here and refresh, and now we have our connect to Gmail. So we're going to go up here to this previous function that we made, the Gmail Connect Get Client. And we're going to go down through this code and change a few things, okay? So right here it says if the file exists, the token path, it's going to check and see if it needs a refresh token. If it doesn't, then it's going to return that client, okay? And so actually we need to return this client here. So we're going to return the client, else it needs to show us this link. So if it needs to show us this link, we're going to return the link. All right. So we're going to return that link. So then as we come down, we say, okay, if it needs to refresh token, then else, if it doesn't need a refresh token, we need it to return the client. And that's the client that it created from getting the access token here. Okay. And so as we come down the code, we say, oh, if it's the first time we've signed in, it's going to get the auth code, and if there's an error, it's going to throw in an error. But if there's not an error, it's going to continue, and it's going to put the file, it's going to create the token file that we need. So here, we're going to return the client also. So basically what it's done is it's created this client with the access token, and the access token is created from the code that comes through the URL, and then it's going to return that client. Else, it's going to return the link to connect. Now, this is saying if the code is set, then it's going to get the access token, else it's going to run this code. Okay, and so then we can turn off this down here because we don't want to return that client there. All right. All right. So now if we come over here and refresh, we need to come down here and see that we have client is equal to blah, blah, blah. So we need to echo out the client. If it doesn't exist, I mean, if it's a link. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say if is object client, and then we can do stuff in there, else, whoops, else, if it's not an object, then it's that link that we've provided. So we're going to echo client. Okay, whoops. And so what it's going to do is this is going to now become the link here that tells us that we need to connect to Gmail. All right. So in this up here, we can do whatever functions that we create because we are connected. All right. We're going to leave that right there. Just whoops. Just so we can have that. All right, so this list emails would now go up here under this, and we could turn that on and it wouldn't cause a problem. All right, so now if we turn that on, we come back over here and we refresh. Now connect to Gmail. All right, so now we can say, now we can go in and we can connect, right? So let's connect to Gmail. We're going to use the same account that we used yesterday. Allow. And now it's showing us a the list of email messages that are in that account. All right. So we want to turn that off. Come back over here and refresh. And so now it just says connect to Gmail. All right. So now we can say here, we can say echo, we are connected. Okay. Come back over here and refresh. And now it says we are connected. So now we know we're connected and we can do other things down here. Now this list emails showed up because down here in the list emails function, I have turned on right here, we've printed out the array of these messages, right? So we're not going to do anything with this now. I can do another video to show you how to parse out the message if we need to. But right now what we want to do is we want to build a function that will send an email, all right? So first thing that we need to do is we need to write a form, okay? So we're going to write some functions. Actually, let's put it up here so it's a little bit closer to our working space. Function, we're going to say Gmail connect email form. Now you can call these functions anything that you want. So we're going to just do some quick content is equal to, we're going to just write out a quick, very simple form. So content dot equals, and we're going to say form method is equal to post action is equal to, we need to change that link. Oops. Oh, come on. Action, we're going to leave the action blank because we're just going to post it to the same page, which I do not recommend, but I just want to make it simple for this. All right, method post action is going to be blank. Then we're going to come down here, we're going to say content dot equals. And if you haven't seen, if you don't know what I'm doing here with the dot equals, we're concatenating a string. And if you don't know what that is, you can watch my PHP videos that explains variables and how to, and string variables and how to concatenate string variables. Basically add more to that string variable. We're creating one long string here, all right? So we're gonna close this form. Now we're gonna create, again, this is gonna not look the best, but we really don't care. Not echo, we want content dot equals, and why am I not able to spell content? There we go, dot equals, and we're going to say input type is equal to, we can say email, and the name is going to be email address, and we don't need a value, we can use a placeholder just so we see that because we're not using a label on this, we can say email address, then we're going to do a break behind it. And these are going to look really, really bad, but it doesn't matter. We just want to get something up there. All right. So input type, and this one's going to be a text, and the name is going to be subject, and the placeholder subject. And we're going to close that off, and we're going to add a break after that. Not an empty break. We need a break. There we go. All right. So then we need a text area for our message. And being that we're inside of WordPress and we're in the WordPress admin, we could put this in as a media box, you know, like the old text box that where you do a post or a page where it gives you the bold and italics and stuff like that, like the tiny MCE editor box. But for right now, we're just going to use a text area. We're going to say name is, we're going to use email message. We want to make sure we push that through as an email message. All right, and then here we're going to add a little bit of style because we want to make sure this is large enough. So we're going to say width is 80%, height is 400 pixels is good enough. All right, so then now we have our email address, subject, and the email message, and now we just need a button. Content dot equals, and we want to add a break after this text area just to break it to the next line. Whoops. All right, so here we're going to put in a input type is submit. Oh, what the heck? All right, name is equal to submit email message. Value is equal to send our email, whoops, remail, send our email. And then the class that we're going to use on here is a button, button, and then button primary. That's a default for the WordPress admin. All the blue buttons that you see, that's the button primary. All right. And so now we've closed our form. So now we can come up here and we can say Gmail Connect form. So we're going to put it underneath this. So we're going to echo out the Gmail Connect form, just like that, and refresh. And we're going to come over here. And why is it not? Oh, we didn't return it. Sorry about that. We didn't return our content. There we go. All right, so now we come over here and refresh. Now we have our little form. And again, it's very simple, basic little form. It's got our email address, the to email address. So we're just saying email address. I hope you guys understand that it's the to address. Subject, email message, submit email message. Okay. So now we need to come up here and say if, and this is going to be the if the email message is submitted. So if submit email message exists as a post, so we're going to say if is set, it's going to be $_post, and it's going to be that field. So in here, we're going to process the data from inside of that message. All right, so the first thing we need is we need the email address. And we're going to say $email address is equal to sanitize email, and that's going to be _post. You should always sanitize the information coming from post or get. So that's going to be email address. Whoops. Why is it not letting me copy? There we go. All right. And so then the next thing that we need is we need the subject, which is the subject here. So we're going to come up here and say $subject is equal to sanitize text field. And that's going to be $_post subject. And then the message is going to be email message. So we're going to say $email message is equal to sanitize text area field. Is that what it is? Text area field. Not sure if that's right or not. We're going to look here in just a second. And that's going to be the email message. So let's do a search really quick in Google for text area field. Text area field. Okay, so in the WordPress codex, it is sanitize text area field. Okay. Wanted to make sure that was right just before we moved on. Okay, so now we have the email address, subject, and the email message, and we need to process that information here. All right, so we're going to come down and we're going to create a couple of new functions, and we're going to do that right here above this form that we created. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a function to create the message, right? So function, if I spell it right, Gmail Connect create message. Okay, so that's our function, and now inside of here we need some arguments, right? So we're going to say sender, which we don't really need, but I'm going to put it in there just as an example, to subject and message text. All right, so that's what we're going to use as those functions. So now we need to come up here, copy this, and come up here and say message is equal to, and we're going to create that message text. Now the sender is the email address that is sending the message. All right, so here we want to put in sender is equal to, now using WordPress current user, we can pull that email address and, you know, say current user user email. But on this, we're just going to do, we're going to put it in there because I want to send it from the same email that I connected from. And that's not my email address that's in my current user. All right. So we're going to just use this as a string. So we can do dmarc@ideapro.com is the sender that we use. And that's the reason why I want to pass that through to this function. If I was using the user that was in my account, my WordPress account, I could say $current user email, like that. But we would need to make sure up here in our function that we pulled in current user, right, as a global, like that. We would need to pull in current user so that it would say current user email, and then that would be our sender. So I'm going to comment this out, and I'll leave that in the source file that I include on the video description. All right, so our sender is this. Our to email address is going to be our email address, so we can just change that here to email address. Our subject is going to be subject, which we've already used that, and then our email message is going to be the message text here. So now those are the ones that we're going to pass through this function and actually create the email. Okay, all right, so this function is going to get a little extensive, but it's not difficult. All right, so we're going to, because all we're doing is creating the message, so we're going to use a message variable and equal that to a Google, service Gmail message. Okay, now what that's going to do is it's going to pull in the Google API that we, the library that we've installed on the first video, and it's going to create a new message object from that new, that's what it should say, new Google service message. Okay, my video's blinking at me. All right, so now we need to lay out the details of the message. So we're going to create a variable called raw message, and that's going to the first one is going to be from, and then we're going to open up 2 brackets, and inside of here we're going to say $sender. All right, and each piece of this message we need to break it to a new line, and sometimes we'll even break it to 2 new lines. So we want to separate each one of these into their own new line, and the way we're going to do that is do a /r and a /n. Okay, and that's return new line basically. All right, so now raw message dot equals, again we're going to concatenate each one of these. So our to address is going to be the same thing. We're going to open up brackets here, and then we're going to open up some curly braces, and we're going to say $to, which is our value here that we're bringing in. So sender here is our value of sender, which is going to be our email address that we associated, and then the to address is going to be the address that we're bringing in. And so then after this we need to do a r/n/r/n. Why is that not working? Oh, let's do this. Change these to double quotes. There we go. All right. So we need to use double quotes because single quotes won't fill in the sender and the to. Single quotes literally takes the text that inside of it and uses that text. With double quotes, it will actually look at the $ variable to fill that in. Okay. Raw message. All right, dot equals, and now what's the next one in our list? Subject. Okay, so we're going to say subject, if we spell it right, is going to, and this is going to where it gets a little bit confusing because we need to UTF-8 some of the parts of the subject or the email, depending on what that is, like the subject, the encoding of the text message, and the message. So this is where it gets a little bit difficult, and I've got my notes over here to make sure I don't miss anything. Equals question mark UTF-8 question mark B question mark. All right. So then from here we can do a dot, and we're going to base encode base 64 encode. Wow, I'm not typing. There we go. And that's going to be the $ subject, and then dot, and we need to do some double quotes over here, and we're going to say question mark equals \r\n. Okay, so again, I'm going to leave this source code in the description so that you guys can use this. This information is available, I think in the Google API documentation. It's just a little hard to understand. So, all right. So then the raw message. What did I do? Spell it wrong. Raw. There's a W in there. Message dot equals, and this is going to be the MIME type. So we need to do MIME version, and that version is going to be 1.0. And then we do r/n to go to the next line. And then we're going to say $raw message dot equals. All right, so this one is going to be the content type. Again, some of these are extensive, and you can just copy and paste this from the code that I'm going to add to the video description. Content type, text, HTML, because we want to send a HTML email. So char set is equal to UTF-8, UTF-8, is that right? UT-8, yeah. And then again, the \r\n, and now raw message dot equals, and this one is going to be the content transfer. So content transfer encoding, make sure I spelled that right, and it's going to be the quoted, there we go, printable, and then we're going to say dot, and it's going to be /r/n. All right. I'm not sure why I did that as a dot in. Quoted printable. Oh, originally I did that as a single quotes. It doesn't really matter, but we can use it as single quotes just to make sure that, oops, take that out. No, there we go. All right, so now that is it's encoding the quotable printable part of the email message. All right, and so then our next raw message, I know this is getting long. Like I said, you can copy and paste this stuff from the file that I provide. All right, and if you notice, we did 2 RNs here, 2 returns. So we go do and bring that down. All right, so then this one is going to be our $message text. All right, so that's basically saying we basically went down through and said sender to subject, and then before we're putting in this message text, we have to tell what the MIME type is. Now, in another video, I'll show you guys how to send an attachment, and you basically from here, you do the same thing. You then say the MIME type, what it is, multi-part attachment, and you have to go through those details and then loop through each attachment to do that. So now we're going to finish out our raw message here. So we're going to say raw, and we're just going to call it raw m is equal to string str tr, right? And I'm going to close that out, and then we're going to base 64 encode the raw message, and then we're going to create an array. From here we're going to do a plus, and then we're going to do a hyphen, and then we're going to do a slash, and we're going to do a underscore. All right, so we're changing the plus to hyphen and the slash to underscore, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And we do that so that it's a URL, it's a 64 encoded string that's URL friendly, that can be passed through URLs and passed through different applications without breaking it, because it has, you know, those different pieces in it that would break, that would make it break. All right, so here we're going to say message, because we created this new message up here. We're going to say message set raw, and guess what that's going to be set to? Our $raw capital M. Okay, and then we're going to return that message. Return the message from that function. All right, so now if we come up here, we've got our message, Gmail Connect, create message. So if we come down here, we've got all this in here, and we can save this. And now if we come over here and we refresh, shouldn't have any errors. All right, so if we do an email address, so we're going to do josh@ideapro.com and just a test message and hi. So we're going to click send our email, and we don't get anything, we don't get any errors or anything like that. And what that did is it basically said, you know, if the post is set, here's the stuff, and we created that message. Now, if we'd got an error on there, there would have been some kind of error in here, whether it was a Google message error or something like that, but we don't have any errors on there, okay? So, and we can do a print post here, right? So if we do print underscore post, that way we can see, let's do this again, at ideapro.com, testing the message. All right, and we hit send our email. Now we have a post that was returned that says our email address, subject, email message, and the button basically here that we clicked. All right, so that means we created a message successfully using the Google Service Gmail message class, and now we just need to send that message. Okay, so we need to write another function that's going to be function Gmail connect send message. Okay, and that you can create an error up here, throw exceptions and stuff like that. I'm not going to worry about going into those details on this because it can get really, really long. All right, so client, we're going to pull in the message. All right, so now we need to take this and come up here and paste it right here under that. And so we can what was I thinking about? Oh, sorry. So now what it's going to do is it's going to get the client here. It's going to connect to Google with our OAuth token. This is where people get confused, is because They don't understand that every time you run a function, run something, you need to connect to Google. So you need to, and basically OAuth is a handshake, and it's before OAuth, APIs were a direct connection. So on this side, we would do everything and then push it to the API, and it would send an email, or it would, do whatever we needed to do. With an OAuth connection, and this is where people don't understand a lot of times, an OAuth connection is a handshake. It's basically, we go, hey Google, we need to do something, and Google says, okay, you're allowed to, right? And so with that information, then we compile everything and we send it back and say, this is what we want to do. So it's a handshake instead of just us creating everything and then pushing it through the API, right? So now Google Connect send message. So down here in this function, we're actually going to send the message that we created from above, all right? So we need to create a service with the client information that we have. So we're going to create a new Google service Gmail with the client that we're passing through to this function. Again, the client is passed through here, and it's passed through this function up here, which we're getting the client from here. Okay, that's the reason why we need to say, if this is an object, if client is an object, then we can do the stuff that we need to do through here. All right, so now that we have our new Google client, or our new service based off our Google client, we can do a try catch, right? Try catch, there we go. All right, and so basically what this is going to do is it's going to try to send the message. If it can't, then it's going to throw back an error. All right, so $message is equal to $service users messages send, and then we need two variables to pass through to the send. Okay, so the first one is the user ID. Google calls it the wrong thing, I believe. In programming, you have a user, which is an object, which is kind of like the client. The user is usually an object, and that object has all the information about the user. The user ID is the ID of that user. The user email is the email address of that user. In Google's documentation and in their API, they call the user ID, and in the documentation it says use the user's email address, or you can use me, M-E, just the word me. And that, I think that's confusing in their documentation because it literally says user ID. So here we're going to put me, and then we're going to pull in the message, right? And that's being passed up here. So who's sending it? Me. And what are we sending? We're sending the message, okay? And so then under here we can say print. Okay, so we're going to say message with ID, because it's going to return the send is going to return a message ID. So we're going to say dot message get ID, and we're going to get that ID that's sent back. Sent. Right? So then down here underneath the catch, we can say print an error occurred. I always want to spell that wrong for some reason. An error occurred, and we're going to say .e, and we're going to say get message, like that. All right, so up here in our catch, we need to create our exception. So we're going to say exception, there we go. And we need to say $e. You can use whatever you like, $i, $p, whatever. $e is what we're going to use, and we're going to catch that exception inside the variable $e, and then we're going to get the message here that is the error that's being returned. All right. So then down here, we don't really need to return anything, so we can say it's null if we want. Okay. So now that we have that, and we have Gmail Connect send message, we have client, and we have message, Now if our email goes through, we should see message with ID, and the message ID has been sent. All right. Okay. So we're going to go back to our page here, and we're going to send a message to josh@ideapro.com, and this is just going to be a testing subject, and this is going to be testing a message from the IO system. Hope this works. All right, and so now we're going to hit send our email, and we have a notice property Google service Gmail user messages in on line 70. So what is our line 170? Whoops. Come on. Had to stop and open my email a minute ago. Now it's giving me a problem. 170. Let's see what we got. Message service users messages is what that's supposed to be. Users messages send. There we go. All right. So now we're going to go back here. We're going to come back to this page. All right, we're going to try it again at ideapro.com. Subject is testing subject 2. Testing message 2 from the IO system. All right, and we're going to send our email, hope for no errors, and boom, message ID. And that's the message ID that we sent. Now in our code, we're still coming up here. We're still showing the post. So we can turn that off. And it still says we are connected up here, but now we have this message ID. And if we go look at our email that I have off screen here, here is the email that just came through. So we have, it's from the dmark@ideapro.com. Here's the subject, testing subject 2. And test message 2 from the IO system. So our email worked. It went through the Gmail SMTP servers using Google OAuth, and now we can move on to adding attachments and doing other things with this email. I feel like sending emails is probably one of the most important pieces that you guys want to build, because you want to build your own plugin that kind of sends out email. You can use Postman or Gmail SMTP to do that from within your WordPress website. But if you really want to control it and you really want to be able to send per each user that's in the site. So like with IdeaPro, we have our support email address. We have a email address that just deals with tickets. We have a email address that's accounting. We have different people in the company that have email addresses, and we want to be able to send out email specifically from within the website from that individual's email address. So typically on a lot of clients, any email that comes out of their website is coming from info@ or support@. So no matter what they do, that's coming out that way. But if you have a client that is that does sales, product sales, and you might want to have an info@ email address and a sales@ email address, so that if someone has a problem, they can send an email to info, or if you want to send out newsletter information, you might want to send it from info or no reply. And if you have product sales, you might want to send it from sales@. With most of the plugins that do WordPress emails, like the Postman and Gmail SMTP, they only allow you to connect to one email address for the entire system. And that one email address, everything has to be sent out from that. But with being able to write your own code here, you can connect each individual account. And that's what we do. We have, accounting has a login to the IdeaPro system, and they're able to send from accounting@. And so any of our invoices that go out, any of our tickets that go out by the ticket email address. Any of the support emails that go out by support. Newsletters go out from newsletters@. And we're able to do multiple email addresses from WordPress instead of just that one email address that Postman or Google SMTP, Gmail SMTP allows you to do. So hope you guys like this video. I will start working on the next video for sending an attachment, and then after we do that one, then we'll work on a video that is parsing out the email that comes in. Attachments are very, very difficult because of what happens, but I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And then we can parse out the emails and show you guys how to create, basically you can create your own email system. You can have, you know, your own inbox and your sent messages and your drafts and all that kind of stuff. And I should do a video just on how to create a draft. So if you wanted to create the draft here and then that shows up as a draft in your Gmail account, you can do that without having to send the message, and then you have the message pending and you can send it whenever you're ready. Okay, but I hope you guys like this video. Like and subscribe. Share it with anybody that you think would benefit from this video. I know a lot of people have problems with Google OAuth, and it's really not that difficult once you kind of get into it and kind of figure some of the details out. The Google documentation is not written very well. So see you guys in the next video. Thanks.